Hello and welcome to the Philippines. Expat life, present, past, and future predictions is the topic of this video. And first I'm going to cover the present. Now I've been living in Cebu City, the Philippines. Actually I've taken 3 trips here and spent about 6 years, 6.5 years as a matter of fact, in Cebu City primarily. I've traveled a bit to other islands. I have taken lots of videos since 2015, August 2015, when I first came here. Always carried a camera in my pocket, and never realizing that this channel would become so large and time-consuming. But anyway, it's been a good ride, and I'm still enjoying the Philippines. We're over 2 years into this pandemic, what they call a pandemic, this crisis, this emergency situation. And while many countries of the world have opened up, the Philippines is still restricting certain travel, certain areas. I can travel pretty freely in Cebu province. The Cebu and its islands has a number of islands, Camotes, Bantayan Island, Malapascua Island, and one of the problems we have here is that each LGU, local government unit, can set their own restrictions and requirements, and it gets confusing, almost impossible to keep up with all the changes because they can change them overnight. At the present time, the Philippines is only allowing in vaccinated, for the most part. My understanding is there are a few exceptions, but if you're not vaccinated, you're not allowed to travel here on a tourist visa, basically, and that's what 98% of you out there are interested in. I will be doing another video soon with JR of JRC Visa Consultancy and Immigration Services here in the coming days, next week anyway. And hopefully get some insights. They've elected a new president, Marcos, so he'll be inaugurated soon, and we'll have a new administration. We'll see if there will be any changes to immigration policy, to opening up the country to more tourism, those types of things. I'm seeing more foreigners, but not very many foreigners. I'm seeing more foreigners. Many of you who were vaccinated came to the Philippines because you had a wife, you had children here you've been separated from for 2 years. You had a relationship, long-term relationship, and you decided it was important to get that vaccine so you could travel here. And so those types of people are here basically. You don't see the huge numbers that they hoped for. And just like many months ago, they opened up tourism more for domestic, for Filipinos, expecting, well, they're going to help us recover. And they did to some degree, but not nearly the number of people that they expected. Same thing happened in Thailand. By excluding tens of millions of foreigners, basically, and most tourists are not going to travel until they are really convinced that the government is actually going to stay open and they aren't going to be restricted in their travels. Why would you take that chance? It's like gambling. Spend thousands of dollars to travel and then find out you can't travel to areas you want to travel to. I walk a lot, and this a few days ago, and no sidewalk basically, so you just find your way on and through traffic. And traffic is, they try not to run over you, but you should be careful. And you find a path, but what there is of a sidewalk usually is an obstacle course, and it's often much safer and easier to walk in traffic, as a matter of fact, many areas. IT Park, I did a video at IT Park, a city within a city here in Cebu City, a big BPO call center type area. And most of their sidewalks are actually pretty good, but once you get out of the main business districts around some of the sidewalks around Cebu Business Park, Cebu Business District, which is Ayala's. They got their big mall there. A lot of those sidewalks aren't too bad. But life here presently, I'm able to move about. I'm not asked for any special documents to get into malls. Face masks are still mandated, supposedly. And to get into the malls, they'll make sure you're wearing your face mask. They did away with the face shields a few months ago, but you'll still see a few people wearing face shields and double masks because, well, if you read the science about masks, most masks, if they're not medical masks, that's an issue. Now, talking about obstacles and lots of these things. I've got a few scars on my leg. Walking at night on street sidewalks that I thought I knew, and there's a new hole there, very dark street, and I try to carry a flashlight with me. But sometimes I've had that happen, drop down into a hole and you don't know how deep it is. Well, what about cost of living? There is inflation going on, especially with imported goods that come in, foreign goods that you might want to purchase in some of the stores. During this travel restrictions for 2 years, rents went down substantially. 10, 15, 20, 30, 40%, depends upon where you're renting, depends upon if you could find the owners of the condominiums or houses that were more motivated. Some were more motivated. Some were not motivated to drop their prices. I just signed another 1-year lease at something that I've lived here for. I've lived in 6 different condominiums in 6.5 years, and
British Council, Center for Premier International Language.
There was a high demand for condominiums, apartments, and low vacancy rates. So prices over the last 7-8 years have been rising very rapidly for condominiums, apartments, houses. And anyway, they dropped back substantially. And the condo I just signed a new lease for, it originally was $35,000 back before the crisis started, and I got it for $25,000. I've been paying $500 US, and with electric and internet and everything, it's costing me just under $600 US, just under 30,000 Philippine pesos a month on average. And I just signed a new lease, and they kept the lease terms where they were, 25,000. I know an Australian fellow I've rented from in the past. He's trying to get pre-pandemic prices out of his condominiums, and I think he's having some trouble. And I suggested maybe because there's still tens of thousands of units sitting vacant. So there's lots of competition out there. Unless you have something special, you're offering internet and cable. If you've got very good furnishings, it's just a perfect location. Certain things like that, you might get by with renting out for the higher price. But other than that, if a person is budget conscious and has the time and energy to look around, you can find really good deals out here. Now, I've got over 1,000 videos up. A lot of those videos have to do with condominiums and housing projects. I started real estate salesman in the malls would grab me, come and look at my condominium. Early on, I started taking videos, putting them up, not realizing how popular they would be. But if you want to know what the condos look like, what they rent for, what they sell for, I've done just a ton of those kind of videos, cost of living videos, travel videos. So check out my playlists, and if you can comment and thumbs up or thumbs down. If these help you, that all helps with the algorithms, helps promote the channel as well. Now presently, let's talk about just traveling. If I want to go to Davao City, for instance, down Mindanao, or up to Baguio, the higher elevation, cooler up there, the summer capital of the Philippines, they call it. There are certain cities to travel, you're supposed to have what's a health pass. Health pass, you got to sign in and get your itinerary all set up. And anyway, some of these areas have their own health pass as well. They had it early on. So I've had tell you a story about an expat I talked to who traveled to Davao City, and he showed up with his girlfriend and some of her friends at a resort, I believe, and he's checking in. He had his health pass available, vaccine card, and they asked for his local pass. I don't know what they called it in Davao. He told them, never heard of it. What is it? Where do I sign up? And then he's wondering, well, are these my friends going to be able to come into the resort with me? Anyway, they finally just gave up, and this is a story I've heard a number of times. They said, oh, just go in, just go. And so they aren't, for the most part, and the government has even asked the resorts, don't be too strict with the foreigners. We don't want, because if you start getting, you reserve places and then you're turned away, you're going to get a lot of bad press. A lot of bad press in the media, and that's the last thing they need. Another story I read about in Boracay, very, very popular, white sand beaches. And over the Easter holiday is a huge holiday here, 2 to 4 day holiday, and they had huge crowds, and what they've started doing is limiting the number of people who are supposed to be in certain areas. And see, before, talk a little bit about the past, before the emergency, you could get on a plane or a ship or whatever and go wherever you wanted. Pretty much nobody would bother you, and a lot of places were overcrowded, overused. In fact, they shut Boracay down for 6 months to rehabilitate the place, and they've done it, I think, to 1 or 2 other places as well. Talked about doing it to more places, but they said, oh, they had more. They talked to the mayor. You had more people than what were allowed in Boracay. Show cause. Tell us why you allowed that. Well, think of what the logistics. How are you as a mayor? What control do you have on how many passengers come in on planes and ships and ferries? In the future, my future prediction is that there will be some control. You will have to book online ahead of time. You won't be able to just get on a ferry and go where you want, so that they can control the number of people in certain areas. And this area over here, this was a real poor area, what they call a squatter village, and it burned down maybe 4 years ago. Big fire down there, and there's still people living down there, and got a number of little food stands up here on the sidewalk. But they have backfilled, or they have filled that area in. It was very low lying. They filled it up with a lot of dirt here, and I was told they were going to build a school back in there. You can see the mound of dirt there, all overgrown with weeds and stuff, and I'll go up there and show it. Turns into, now it's pretty much a dump, garbage dump, and I'm gonna walk up there and show you that. But it's a shame. It's a shame they have an area like this that they could keep clean, but it's, well, look, it is what it is. It goes way back there. I don't know if you can see it, smoke back there. People are burning some of the garbage. Something that happens too often. So there may have been a project planned, and somebody did maybe somebody had all that dirt in excess they took from another site, and they were allowed to dump it there, and then they couldn't get the permits to build on it, or whatever the deal is, or takes a few years to settle, whatever. And there again, the past, now the present. Now if you sneeze or cough when you're around other people, everybody looks at you like, oh, you're going to spread the virus. So it's a different mindset, but still,
Good afternoon.
I can talk to virtually any of the Filipinos, and most of them are very, very friendly. And guy loading this a water treatment plant here, private water purification plant, and he's hauling that off maybe to his village or whatever. And a few other things about the present. Condominium I live in, our elevators went out during Super Typhoon Odette in December 16th, 17th last year. And only one is operating presently, and it works, takes time, you got to wait sometimes, but I asked one of the maintenance guys, I was getting my air conditioner cleaned, what's the deal, when they going to open up the second elevator? And he said, oh, they're waiting for the insurance to pay. Well, this is over 5 months, been over 5 months already, and you would think that they would repair it and wait for the insurance to pay. I would think anyway. Around the Philippines, there's still issues on Bohol, I've heard it, with electricity and water not being readily available like it used to be. So when you decide to move into an area, there's certain areas like Dumaguete, I've heard many, many times that they have more brownouts. They lose their electricity more often for longer periods of time. Here in Cebu City, the areas I've lived in are always close to the business districts, the newer areas, and gives you an idea how steep some of these underground parking ramps are. And so it's something to check out. Do you have electricity? Do you have internet? Do you have reliable water supply? And I store more water, I keep more drinkable water and other water available in case our water goes out, and it had for quite some time after the typhoon. Now, give credit to the Philippines. One thing they're doing, they are setting up new tourist areas, trying to spread tourism out further, like northern Cebu. There's a number of islands, number of areas with some nice beaches, and they're going to start promoting different areas. They're going to start promoting tourists go up and look at the various farms and eco farms and different things like that. Try to spread these huge numbers. Hopefully that will come back to the Philippines if they ever decide to drop the restrictions. The Philippines has huge potential. I think in 2019 they had about 9 million tourists visit. Thailand, in comparison, had 40 million tourists. So there's huge potential for growth in tourism and the dollars that they bring in. Philippines is hurting. Imagine locking down, not getting the tax revenues and the tourist dollars in, the businesses that have closed, tens of thousands of businesses. And they are hurting big time. They really, really, really need dollars from all sectors, especially the tourism sector. So they have huge potential. Hopefully they won't mess it up. An article I read the other day, one of these international agencies was suggesting that the Philippines would be one of the slowest to recover because they still have restrictions in place. I would not be surprised, not just in the Philippines, but I think Thailand now, they have a tourist tax of a few dollars, and I wouldn't be surprised to see the Philippines do something like that to make it just a little bit more expensive for everybody, to try to increase the revenue coming into the governments. Um, I've had a few people comment that they think that the new administration here will be less friendly to especially Western tourists. I don't know what'll happen. We'll just have to wait and see. On the other hand, in near term, I don't think very much is going to change. But things can change here and have changed here quickly without much notice. So you could see some changes in costs or visa types, those types of things. I used to, the first year and a half, 2 years I came here, I went and did all my visa extensions, tourist visa extensions myself. And I saw some guys get upset, start arguing with immigration guys. That's the last thing you want to do here. And I've seen a couple of guys get denied, and they said, why? And they wouldn't give them a reason, but they were denied. Maybe they had some complaint against them, who knows? But it's like, and the one guy in particular didn't look like he had a dime to his name. So I suspect that he's still here. I suspect he never left. One of the illegal immigrants, whatever you want to call them. I now use JR at JRC Visa Consultancy, and he knows the language, he knows the system. I don't have to, because of the language barrier, English is the second language. These immigration guys are great. Think of the hundreds of different accents that they deal with, people from hundreds of different countries, accents, and trying to explain things to them in English. And a lot of times English is not the first language of the people they're dealing with as well. So they have to have a lot of patience, but if you don't have your documents properly set up, that's another reason why I just here, JR, take care of it please, and I'll pay for the services, whatever it's worth it. To me, not to have to deal with it anymore. Travel costs, airline costs, depend on where you're flying, when you're flying. I had a friend who booked way out in August or September, I think. He said that's the first time he could find a reasonable price for air flight. Depends on how important it is to you, how important that money is to you. Dental clinics up and down these various streets, easy to find. I do see a lot more ferries coming and going. I do see a lot more planes landing at Mactan Airport from my vantage point. And one of these days I'm gonna check and find out where they're all coming from, but they're slowly, the airlines are increasing flights domestically and internationally. I think AirAsia are one of them. Cebu Pacific perhaps is going to start South Korean flights in July. Just give you an idea that it's taking time to get your pilots back, get your flight attendants back, your mechanics back, get your planes up and going again. Can't just throw a switch one day and say, okay, we're open, everybody come. Doesn't work like that. And a little bit about staying. Some people just rent hotels for a month, or they move around, they travel a little bit, stay in hotels or resorts, various places. You have Airbnb. One thing I've noticed as far as traveling, with the high price of fuel, a lot of taxis have just stopped running. And it's a little more difficult. Sometimes takes a little bit longer to find a taxi these days because they say they're just not making enough money to keep the car out on the road. I would think that they would raise the rate. It really is quite inexpensive presently, but see, the demand isn't there either because they haven't really opened it up to tourists, the economy up to tourists for the most part. Still have restrictions, and as long as there are any restrictions, that will keep millions of people from traveling. If there's any question about whether they're going to stay open. But one thing that's happened is a number of hotels are offering longer term rentals, And you just have to ask, even before this crisis, many hotels, if you're going to stay longer, 2 weeks or a month, ask, and they will might give you a 10% discount or some other discount. Just negotiate that, and don't be afraid to negotiate. This video, my GoPro, it doesn't always put the videos in chronological order. Not sure why, but it doesn't do that. And when I laid these out, this is not chronological order, so if you wonder what street I'm on. I think I was taking the longer way from, I think I was in the downtown area, walking back to the uptown area, I believe. Long walk that day.
Bosch Service Center.
Bosch. One nice thing about the bigger cities as well is you have service centers. Like I've got an Asus laptop, I've got an Acer laptop, and they both have, I think they both have service centers here. A lot of your electronic goods, your appliances, they've got service centers here. They might have parts, be able to do warranty work. Not many people interested in my sunrise video. I took that in 4K video, and then of course YouTube compresses it, and I'm not sure what the quality looks like if you've got a 4K. If you don't have a 4K screen, you aren't going to get 4K viewing, obviously. But anyway, I probably won't do that again. But there were a few people who comment on that, and it was like 30-minute long, almost 30-minute long video. And eventually the sun did come up, but real nice view of the colors of the sunrise. Don't get a lot of those here. No, I do get a lot on each street corner almost, where there's a side street up here. There will be hobble motorbike taxis. And as I'd walk by, where are you going, sir? Where are you going? Motor, sir. Motor, sir. That's what they call their motorbikes. Motor. And because I'm walking and taking video, I didn't want to ride. Though it was a hot day, I was sweating and getting a little tired after a long walk, but I walked all the way home. I have seen a lot of changes here in Cebu City in the last 6.5 years. Many more condominium buildings, and the question is, are they going to overbuild? Now, I was told by a Filipino real estate agent who worked in Thailand quite a number of years back that Thailand had overbuilt, and that's why their prices tend to be lower. And when I moved to Phoenix, Arizona, back in the early 1980s, they had overbuilt big time, and you could buy one condo, get their townhouse, and get 2 free. And I'm exaggerating, of course, but really depressed prices. And the question, even 6 years ago, I asked a manager of a condominium, and he said, "Well, that's a question. There's so many pre-selling that are they going to overbuild at some point in time?" Well, Cebu City is a big draw, as is Iloilo, Davao City, Bacolod. Many other cities as well have huge numbers of call centers, the BPO, business processing outsourcing centers. And question is, if they because presently there are tens of thousands of units sitting vacant in all these different cities. Anyway, take care, and I'll see you next time.